Welcome to Combat Uplink, presented by Matlock's Fight Talk.
First things first, this was the best event of the year, and who would have guessed that if you put together meaningful matchups that make sense in the division, you end up with a good card. Now, that's not always going to be true, but at the very least, even if the fight is boring, it still matters that it makes sense in the division. And it just so happens that in this card, it was super entertaining top to bottom, and a lot of the fights made sense. Couple exceptions here and there, but it felt really good watching it. It felt almost nostalgic because we don't get cards like this often. All I can think about after watching this is how Alexia Grasso basically killed Maycee Barber. In my last transmission, I said one of the ways I could see Maycee losing is that she has this newfound confidence in her striking, and she's gonna want to test it with Grasso, see how she fares in the rematch, and that's what she did. She spent way too much time on the feet doing her thing and not level changing, like how I thought she would, and try to make this a dogfight. Like, she had to come out aggressive. She boxed with someone, as I said, who spent 3 training camps, 3 back-to-back championship training camps preparing for Valentina Shevchenko. And then the next fight after that, she prepared for Natalia Silva. And these strikers are way better than Maycee Barber. Alexia lands a straight left, and it hits Maycee so clean, it turns her 180 degrees. She falls down to a knee. Grasso throws a punch, but then quickly wraps up a choke, which again, I thought Grasso would be able to get a submission in this fight too. But anyway, Maycee's already out, obviously. The ref jumps in, Mike Beltran, and once he breaks up the fight, Maycee is still moving. She starts to wrestle the ref for a second, but then she just passes out. She just kind of passes away, and she's out cold for about 2 minutes straight. And I was watching the multicam stream in Paramount. If you guys don't watch the multicam stream, you're doing it wrong. The main feed that you select on Paramount Plus is filled with ads. And what you might not like about the multicam view is that it's split 4 ways, but you get 2 angles and you get both the corners, and you get way less ads, and you get to watch all the walkouts. Do that. It's a pro tip. But DC says in the broadcast, while she's out cold, that Maycee Barber is like, she's up now, she's good. And she is breathing, but she hasn't moved a muscle in 2 minutes. And like 30 seconds in, he's like, she's moving or she's up. But it was pretty scary because it's one of the nastiest knockouts in women's MMA I've ever seen. And it's up there with some of the worst I've ever seen in general. And on the regional scene, I saw a knockout similar where this guy was out cold for a long time, and we had nothing else to put up on the screen, and we were young and dumb at the time, and we just kind of were like displaying this guy knocked out. And their parents came up to us and they were angry with us, like, why would you show his face when he's knocked out like that? I picked Barber. Grasso got it done. That'll be a tough one to beat for knockout of the year. That was nasty. Next, I want to talk about Pyfer and Adesanya. I picked Pyfer, I picked him round 2, and I picked him by knockout TKO. But I kind of forgot that while I was watching the fight, because even though I picked Pyfer, I was rooting, and I think a lot of people were in this train, were rooting for Adesanya to win. And he was looking really good in round 1, except for the end when Pyfer got the knee tap at the end of the round. And that was definitely concerning because it's like, all right, that's kind of foreshadowing probably what's going to happen. At least in my mind, I thought it was. But in round 2, Adesanya was doing great. But then it's like once he felt the power of Pyfer one time and he like took a good shot and he wasn't like phased, Adesanya decided that he was going to kind of stay in that fire and stay in the pocket and start slugging with Pyfer. Which is crazy because before that, Adesanya was switching to southpaw, throwing the inside body kick, hitting the straight left, and he switched to orthodox and then throw a kick to the lead leg of Pyfer. He was doing great, but that confidence grew when he took a punch, in my opinion, and then he stayed in the fire, and rather than keep working at range, Adesanya would get hit and back up in a straight line, and he wouldn't even circle out, which was weird too. Anyway, in some of the exchanges, Pyfer found an opportunity to get it to the ground, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Gets to the back and beats him till the ref has to stop it. And as I said in my last transmission, Adesanya would have dusted Pyfer on his worst day in his prime. The other fight I talked about in my last transmission was Abdul-Malik versus Belgaroui. In my notes and what I boiled it down to was Malik blasts him, takes him down, and submits him, or Belgaroui is going to be able to snipe him and move and catch Malik moving in. But I expected Malik to do way more right away. I felt like standing around letting Belgaroui establish a rhythm would be the worst idea. And that's exactly what happened. And I picked Abdul-Malik to win. So that was one of the biggest ass beatings of the night. Malik let himself get picked apart, but you could see that when he did decide to explode into range, he would get takedowns. And he would hold Belgaroui against the cage and he would work, but it was way too late. This was when he was already compromised and got picked apart with a jab and leg kicks. But as I said, no matter who won this one, there were going to be exciting matchups for both guys. And Belgaroui just won a ton of fans tonight. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up fighting Adesanya in the UFC. I just think that's an easy money fight for the UFC. If they build it right, if the UFC wants to put in the time and money to actually promote a fight, they could build a whole narrative like they did with Poatan and Adesanya. They can do that with Belgaroui and Adesanya, even with him coming off a loss. But it was an incredible card. I just wanted to say also I really enjoyed Douglas's performance over Erosa. Casey O'Neill had a great performance, highlight reel knockout. Bahamondes versus Musayev, really good fight, but points should have been taken. One of the better things DC was talking about on the broadcast that he would get right. But otherwise, it was super entertaining, and both guys just wanted that victory. So I think they both kind of walk away with style points and a lot more fans. Rest in peace, Chase Hooper. Fortune got robbed against Tybura, but then they fixed the actual scorecards later, or they read it out correctly. I scored the fight for Fortune, and I was very confused. I was like, holy shit, the judges are really bad tonight. And then some people were tweeting at me like, no, I scored it for Tybura. I don't know how you would score that fight for Tybura, whatever. It's not like, it felt like a robbery to me, but at least they got that correct. And then Yanez was super crispy tonight. Loved that fight. Really tight boxing. I think it was a left hook that caught him a few times though. So he was doing really well, but still getting clipped by a left hook. The last thought that I have is that I hope Joe Pyfer sees a licensed professional because he needs professional help. I said this in the last transmission, but talking about finding God and everything just overnight because he was gonna kill himself. Then his girlfriend told him about God or something, and he's a born again Christian. This stuff, you don't fix this stuff overnight. So he needs actual help. But Pyfer did well tonight. But he needs to work on that professionally, with a professional. Captain Matlock signing off. Until next time. I have one more thing to say. A lot of people talking about Michael Chiesa not giving Niko Price time as a courtesy because he was retiring as well. I get the sentiment, but throwing blame at Chiesa or throwing blame at the UFC, it's, you guys, Niko Price deciding that he was going to retire in Seattle, and they're not the main event, by the way, and then expecting the UFC to do a package for him or give him the time of day. This was Niko Price's choice to retire, knowing this. He's from Florida. He should have retired earlier or negotiated with the UFC that he needs one more fight somewhere else so he can retire on his own terms. Would it have been nice? Sure. But the UFC only has so much time, and they're only going to put so much effort into something like this. So he should have just did it a different day. I say that's on Niko Price.